Good day. My name is Miss Amelia Griffith. Today, we stand in support of the moot that Julius Caesar's death was necessary to preserve the democracy of Rome. To begin, Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare is a political tragedy that explores power, ambition, loyalty, and the struggle between dictatorship and republican freedom. So this play is set in ancient Rome, a society that valued shared governance through the Senate. However, Caesar's growing power threatened that system. So before explaining why Caesar's death was necessary, it is important that we understand what democracy means. Democracy refers to a system of governance where power is shared and decisions are made collectively, rather than being controlled by one single person. So, Rome at the time, it functioned as a democratic, not a monarchy. The first reason I will be looking at is that Caesar showed clear signs of ambition and desire for absolute power. Throughout the play, Caesar was repeatedly offered a crown. Although he refused it, his actions was actually suggesting otherwise. So, Casca actually reported that Caesar refused the crown only to gain the public support and their gaze. So he kept denying the crown, but he actually wanted it. So this behavior, it actually suggests manipulation rather than humility. Caesar enjoyed the adoration he was getting from the public and was slowly positioning himself as a ruler above the Senate. Additionally, Caesar dismisses warnings that threatened his authority. When the soothsayer warned him to beware the Iris of March, Caesar arrogantly responded and said, "He's a dreamer. Let us leave him." This arrogance highlights his belief that he is untouchable, which is a dangerous trait to have in a democratic leader. According to historian Mary Beard, Caesar's rise represented a fundamental threat to republican governance. His growing dominance made it clear that Rome was heading towards dictatorship. Therefore, Caesar's ambition and disregard for sheer power justified the conspirators' fears and supports the argument that his death was actually necessary to protect Rome's democracy.
Good morning, everyone. I, the second speaker of my group, am here to concrete not an argument, but facts that reveals that Caesar's death was necessary to save Rome. I will explain why Brutus acted for the good of the country and why Caesar himself was becoming too proud and dangerous. Let's begin with Brutus. Many people think that Brutus betrayed Caesar because he was jealous or selfish, right? Well, wrong. Brutus was a loyal friend to Caesar. In the play, he says, and I quote, "Not that I loved Caesar less, but that I loved Rome more." End of quote, Act 3, Scene 2. This clearly shows that Brutus did not kill Caesar for himself. He killed him for the people of Rome, to protect their freedom. He even mentioned in Act 2, "It must be by his death, and for my part, I know no personal cause to scorn at him, but for the general." End of quote. Act 2, Scene 1. Brutus clearly shows he has no personal reason to hate Caesar by saying this. He only acts for the good of Rome. This is clear patriotism, putting your country before your own feelings. Now, let's focus on Caesar himself. Caesar was becoming too proud and too powerful. He ignored serious warnings. The soothsayer told him, I quote, beware of the ideas of Mars. Calpurnia, his wife, had a dream about Caesar dying, but he laughed and ignored her warning. This shows that Caesar was not listening to advice. He thought that he knew it all. He also said, and I quote, I am constant as the northern star, end of quote, in Act 3, Scene 1. This is Caesar saying he cannot be changed, and no one of no authority can question him. In simple words, he thought he was above the law. A leader like this is dangerous for democracy because democracy only works when leaders follow the law and listen to the people. Democracy is all about sharing power. Caesar's behavior showed that he was moving towards being a king or a dictator. The conspirators, including Brutus, believed that if Caesar lived, Rome would lose its freedom. Brutus made a very hard choice, but it was necessary to protect Rome. As historian Mary Beard says, Romans feared leaders who acted like kings because they could take away people's rights. Adrian Goldsworthy adds that Caesar's growing power weakened the Senate, which is the foundation of Roman democracy. And Harold Broom explains that Brutus represents honor and moral duty, showing that his intentions were noble but not selfish. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am Miss Julissa Gonzalez, and I am the third speaker. So the opposing side may argue that Brutus went against a respected leader and contributed to chaos in Rome. They may say that Saint Caesar did not show any sign of being a tyrant. The actions of Brutus were rather hasty. But such an argument disregards the sincere concern of Brutus for the future of the Roman Republic. In Julius Caesar, Brutus says that his feelings are not of any private wrong, but of the general good of Rome. As I quote, in Act 2, Scene 1, he states, I know no personal cause to spurn at him, but for the general. So this proved that indeed he was making a decision out of civic responsibility. Brutus was worried that Caesar would develop an ambition if he crowns him. He likened Caesar to a serpent egg, which should be dealt with before he hatches into danger. From this, it is clear that Brutus perceived his actions as preventative. He was saving Rome from possible tyranny and not out of envy or any form of antagonism. Brutus is not a man of malice. He is a man of honor, restraint, and moral agony. A person performing an ill act would perform it cruelly for his benefit. But Brutus speaks about performing the act moderately. Let us be sacrificers, but not butchers. He says to his fellow conspirators in the morning, as I quote, In Act 2, Scene 1, when reminded to keep dignity in their performance, this provide evidence that his intention was more to do what was right for Rome rather to use all the necessary force. And Brutus speaks his reason rather than play at this guys. Not that I love Caesar less, but that I love Rome more. The words ring out strong and true with the ability of an honest man to convince himself that what he does is right in the morning. Preserving freedom. Brutus does not have any personal interest in the fall of Caesar. He is not inspired by a quest for power, leadership, or even by a quest for recognition to do all that he does. Rather, he loses much and also his life at the end. As I quote in Act 5, Scene 5 of the play, Mark Antony acknowledged this about Brutus, stating, "This was the noblest romance of them all. Even all opponents admit that the motivation of Brutus was real and sincere towards Rome." In conclusion, Brutus is not a betrayer, but rather a tragic patriot. He sacrifices personal loyalty for the greater good, well-being of Rome, and without any doubt knows that his decision was knows that his decision will cost him reputation, friendship, and ultimately his life. His actions stem from an intention to prevent tyranny, a commitment to the republic, and strong morality. So what Brutus did to Caesar shouldn't be seen as a stab in the back, but rather a painful sacrifice for the sake of Rome's freedom. Brutus picked Rome over Caesar's, showing his commitment to the republic. Thank you.